In our last video, we talked about the what and why of music. What is it and why do we make it? But today is all about the how. How do we produce music? And the answer, of course, is with musical instruments. Musical instruments are objects that produce sound. So let's quickly answer the question, what is sound? Sound is vibrations in the air that are picked up by a listening device. In this case, your ears. The power or amplitude of the vibration determines its volume, which is measured in decibels. The speed of the vibration determines the sound's tone, which is measured in hertz. All musical instruments allow a player to alter the decibels, the hertz, or some other aspect of the sound in a controlled way, thus allowing a player to create music. Now, there are thousands of kinds of musical instruments out there, and we're not going to talk about them all, but fortunately, they can all be categorized in four main groups: strings, wind, percussion, and electronic. The stringed musical instruments are probably the smallest group of instruments, though by no means the least important. A stringed musical instrument is one where a tightly pulled piece of string, be it nylon, metal, or traditionally animal parts, is either plucked or bowed. In North American music, the most popular stringed instrument tends to be the guitar, which usually has 6 strings and is very good at playing either chords or lead melodies. Wind instruments make sound by directly altering air itself. Air is blown either through or across a hollow surface. The hollow surface then vibrates at a certain resonant frequency, and we interpret that as sound. There are a wide variety of wind instruments. There are woodwinds, like this clarinet. The clarinet has this piece of wood up here that vibrates back and forth, and that vibration creates sound. Brass instruments are also part of the wind family. With brass instruments, of which I don't have an example here to show you, you have a mouthpiece which looks kind of like a tiny funnel. When you blow through the device properly, you create a musical note that sounds something like this. And of course, we can't forget the oldest wind instrument of all, the human voice. The human voice makes noise because the larynx, or voice box inside your throat, has membranes that vibrate at frequencies that we can control. In the case of some singers, they can have many, many octaves of range that they can use to belt out whatever it is that they are singing. The human voice is one of the most versatile instruments in existence. Percussion instruments tend to cover every physical object that is not a string or wind instrument. If you can hit it, or scrape it, or ring it, or shake it, or brush it, you have a percussion instrument. My representative for the percussion instrument is this drum. Though drums are the most famous of the percussion instruments, I would say, pretty much anything can be a percussion instrument. A guitar can be used as a percussion instrument. A flute can be used as a percussion instrument. Percussion instruments don't even need to be solid objects. The Baka tribe of Central Africa uses their own river as a percussion instrument. They go out into the river, and a group of them will start hitting the river simultaneously, creating a rhythmic, synchronized splash. This we would call a water drum, and it just reminds us how versatile percussion instruments can be. These 3 categories of instruments, strings, wind, and percussion, have been around for thousands of years in countless cultures. As an example, the Bible has a book inside it called Psalms, which is filled with spiritual songs, and the very last one of those includes a list of at least 7 different instruments that contain strings, wind, and percussion. Until the 20th century, these 3 categories of instruments were enough. They gave us a wide variety of music to create. But then came the electronic age. Once scientists discovered that electrical current moves in waves, it didn't take long for people to realize that those waves could be used not only to amplify sound, but also to create new sounds entirely. New instruments were invented in the early 20th century, things like the theremin and the Hammond organ. But with the rise of computers and digital technology, whole new instruments started appearing. Early video games included very, very primitive sound chips on their games to create bleeps and boops that could be turned into very basic music. The 1980s itself brought this whole era of synthesizers and synthesized music that started showing up in pop music on radios all over the world. And with the rise of recording equipment and digital recording, now sounds could be sampled. And if audio could be sampled and altered in various ways, well, now you can create virtual instruments that are played by performers like me. Lastly, I feel like I should mention keyboards, because it feels like I've been avoiding them as a category of instrument. And I have, because keyboards aren't unique ways to create sound, they're just a unique user interface to play sound. In fact, if you combine keyboards with each of the 4 categories of music, you create a different instrument. Keyboard plus strings creates a harpsichord, which was an instrument that created sound by plucking the strings inside it. A keyboard plus a wind instrument creates something like a pipe organ. You press the keys, and air is now able to escape through various pipes, creating a unique note. If you combine a keyboard with a percussion instrument, you get a piano. Now, yes, pianos have strings inside them, but the strings aren't plucked or bowed, they're just hit. They're tapped at various strengths, and so the piano, while not usually in the percussion section, is technically a percussion instrument. And then finally, if you add a keyboard to an electronic instrument, you get the synthesizer. The world of musical instruments is wide and vast. You can create many, many different sounds. If you are a casual listener of music, I encourage you to try and find out some of the more unusual musical instruments out there, just to explore and see what kinds of things people have been playing on for possibly thousands of years. If you're a composer of music, I encourage you to spend an afternoon just learning about other musical instruments that you might be able to incorporate in songs. But wherever you sit on the musical spectrum, I hope that this video has been informative for you. Next video, we're going to start doing an introduction to chords and intervals, the base components of any melodic song. This has been an Orchestra of One. My name is Chris Hendricks, and thanks again for watching. Bye.